Good morning. I am excited to be live today. I am excited to keep showing up. There are a few random things I want to talk about, and then I will deep dive into vulnerability. So yesterday I took a day of rest. Focused on it being family first, which I do a majority of the day, all day. But to have that morning time with myself and with my kids is awesome too. So the things that showed up yesterday, I've been reading Brene Brown's Daring Greatly. I watched her vulnerability TEDx, which is an amazing listen. So I will be posting that. And I also was catching up with Rachel Hollis and where she's going, and she has a new book coming out. And with the new book coming out, if you pre-ordered it, you got this 1-hour class about rebuilding yourself, which takes massive vulnerability. So it was like, okay, this is really showing up in a lot of different ways for me. So I was taking the time to really see what was coming up, give it the time and space, really listen to it. So with all of that being said, if you have any interest in Brene Brown and reading her Daring Greatly has been amazing. If you have any interest in Rachel Hollis, her new book coming out is Didn't See That Coming, and she has some other books like Girl Wash Your Face. Can't remember what the other one is, but Girl Wash Your Face was a good one for sure. She came at a time when like everything in my life was looking as if it was falling apart, you know. And she has such a go-getter, pick up your feet, you know, and don't blame anybody else for your problems, blame yourself for your problems and fix them kind of attitude. She's such a go-getter, which I feel like my energy is more of a calming encourage, like encourage you to do things, be a space of like open, just compassion and kindness. And she's the bull in the china cabinet, you know, that I admire, of just doing hard things, you know, without complaining, you know. So I really like her. So I want to talk about vulnerability because it is so often focused on, you know, vulnerability outside of you, vulnerability in the way that you show up, vulnerability in the relationships that you have. And it's such a key factor in, you know, being able to connect with other people, whether it is, you know, people you work with or your family or and really people you're in a relationship with. Being able to be vulnerable and have that communication and sometimes hard conversations is huge, but it's really hard to have, at least in my experience, have that vulnerability with other people if you're not having that vulnerability with yourself. Are you having hard conversations with yourself? Are you giving yourself room for love and compassion and understanding? If you're having a hard time with your past self, your past life, your past choices, um, you're not really being vulnerable with yourself. And I really think that key habits, key parts of you that you desire and you want have to come from within you by giving that to yourself first. So, I'll use compassion for example. It's really hard to give compassion to someone outside of you when you don't give compassion to yourself. And I'll go even deeper with this example. If you're really hard on yourself in your work, like you don't allow mistakes to happen in the work that you do, you don't allow yourself to make any errors, and when you do, you beat yourself up so hard for them. Um, that's going to show up with everyone around you. You are not going to let anyone have an error in their life because you don't allow errors in yours. You're not going to give anybody else compassion because you're not giving yourself compassion. You are not going to understand that anybody else sees the world differently than you do because you won't allow yourself to see you differently. This has shown up in work. I was engaged in working with somebody who was so stressed out, so hard on themselves. Really, really mean self talk to themselves. Um, and then they wouldn't see that's what they were projecting outside of them. Those are the kind of relationships they were having with everyone else. And it got to the point where I could no longer work with this person anymore because they couldn't be kind to themselves. So, how could I expect them to be kind to me? Like we really show people who we are and what we do by the actions that we take around ourselves. Like if we are so unforgiving of our own faults, how can we expect them to be, forgiving to ours? There are some cases where some people are so hard on themselves and so kind to everyone else to a fault where they end up getting hurt again. Um, there are those cases, but what you'll notice is that they are hurt all the time and they're sad all the time. So then instead of thinking that they are showing you that they'll hurt you, you can see that they'll pass on that energy of just pain and sadness when you're around them. You can really tell energy from someone else when you spend time with them, and it's primarily how you feel after you are done spending time with them. So I've noticed when someone is in pain, when I'm leaving that situation, I feel so unhappy or in pain with my own body or life or situation. Um, and it passes on to me. Or if someone is very sad, I'm now looking at the world through this lens, this like gray fog of sadness, because it's like the energy of the person that I was with, I took on with me. Now I don't have to. I don't have to attach to the energy around me, which is something I'm learning, having boundaries with my own energy and being able to see someone else's energy clearly and not attach to it as if it's mine. But it is something that if you're unaware of the energy you put off, if you're unaware of the energy around you, it is very difficult to really take a step back from that and not claim it as your own energy. So how does this show up with vulnerability? My language of vulnerability is being so real with yourself and at the same time so compassionate. So, for example, with my kids, being super vulnerable with them, having the courage to tell them when I've made a mistake, especially with them, I would see as being very vulnerable. And I would not be able to be that vulnerable with them. I wouldn't be able to say to my kids, I'm really sorry that I messed up um, in this situation with you, if I was not able to be very vulnerable with myself and recognize that I made a mistake. You know, we love pointing out flaws of other people. We love pointing out flaws of the kids that we are raising because we think we are making them a better person by telling them all the things that they should be doing or could be doing differently. Um, this is a tough one to chew on um, sometimes for me. Um, we always think, telling other people what they could be doing better is um, is better, but I like to question that. In some cases, I do believe it's true, but I do believe it requires ultimate vulnerability and compassion. Like being able to say, "Hey, I am terrible at this. Um, it's a skill that I'm still learning. Um, I haven't mastered it yet. I'm giving myself the grace and time to realize that I didn't realize this was a problem for me until now. And here's how I'm going to go about, changing this situation for my future self, you know, and for the people that I'm around. You have to be so vulnerable with yourself in order to be vulnerable with anyone else. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what it means to be vulnerable to you. If you recognized that it's also an inside job, that it requires vulnerability with you. For those of you who feel like they have vulnerability down, I'd love for you to comment below on like the tools for staying vulnerable, staying aware of your own vulnerability. I would just say mine is meditation, being able to sit with myself, sit with my thoughts, and, love and support them as they're coming up is a way that I stay vulnerable with myself and connect with myself. Um, and I kind of want to start a little bit of a challenge um, of communicating with a few of you that you feel like these lives or a particular live really resonates with you. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to message the first 5 people that comment below about vulnerability and set up a time to do a chat, like to do a Zoom call about vulnerability, about how it shows up for you in your life, um, and get a little bit of background of what it's like in other people's experiences, and maybe even go a little bit deeper with my own vulnerability with a few of you so that you guys can see how it's shown up in my life as well. So if you're interested in that, comment below, answer one of the questions I was talking about. Let me know if you're interested in doing a call, and let's get together and talk about this a little bit more. All right, I'm excited. Love you guys. See you tomorrow.